Hey there, internets. So it's been a couple of weeks of slow news, and I like to, bullshit about what I want to talk about. Just complain to my phone, and I was gonna bring up about Trump derangement syndrome and the fine Trump had, and his various, how those are all the same thing. But on the EV Easter, I don't like to put out stuff about politics, but it's been a couple of weeks. And it's 11:30 at night. I feel like I got to say something. But something else that happened, of course, is a bridge collapsing. Now, for those of us on the right, this is where I think I need to urge some caution. I've seen friends and relatives posting about the bridge, and whether it's people saying, "Isn't this convenient?" or "Ships don't lose power." Hold off until there actually is an investigation. What things I've gathered, various news sources, not just one. Apparently, that ship had a inspection fail. It failed an inspection back in June, I believe, on its power systems. There's a channel called "What's Going On with Shipping," where the guy talks about nothing but things like the Suez Canal being plugged, or when the submarine going down to visit the Titanic was crushed, or various shipping accidents. Talking about that, he actually breaks it all down, everywhere along there. And yes, a ship can lose power depending on how that ship is designed. And when I first heard about it, I was like, "Wow, that's interesting." The next morning, I was listening to Tim Pool and the idea of it being hijacked. I'm like, "That sounds crazy." Apparently there are pages saying what to do if your ship gets hijacked. It all depends on if for it to even be possible, is your GPS navigation system tied in with your ship's controls. Let's not just assume anything. Uh, this ship may have had repair issues. There's some possibility of bad fuel. Let's let things be determined. Uh, some of the crazier theories where people are starting to talk about, um, Obama produced a movie where they had that same bridge go down. It had to be somehow connected to that. Why would you telescope it? I mean, put this stuff through some logic, and just some logical thought, and you start saying, I don't think so. Sometimes an accident just actually is an accident. You can say it should have had dolphins on it to make it harder for it to be damaged. Absolutely. We had a bridge go down in Skagit County. Of course, Democrats tried to say, "Oh, well, this wouldn't have happened if Republicans hadn't tried to cut the budget," but it wasn't even a bridge that would have been replaced because it wasn't structurally deficient. It was just of a design that when something just tall enough went through it, it took out a whole section. Sometimes those things do happen. So just assuming, oh, it couldn't have been that. Sometimes one thing that's part of this Trump derangement syndrome stuff, and this kind of ties in, is Democrats don't have an argument for their position, so they immediately turn to "you're stupid," or "you're racist," or "you're sexist," or "you're a transphobe." And it's like that. None of that is the case. Well, on the right, we don't have a "you're a this" other than a socialist, and you can actually trace that back. Do they pursue socialist policies? So what is it? I think a lot of us start thinking about the possibility of some great conspiracy, whether it's a globalist conspiracy or something else, and isn't necessarily the case. If you wonder, people say, "Oh, Obama's pulling Biden's strings like a puppet." I got news for you. This administration isn't competent enough. I mean, I didn't think much of the Obama administration, but these guys are, they're pushing the envelope for incompetence. They're looking and cutting themselves with it. I mean, they're it's completely bizarre sometimes. Sometimes incompetence is literal incompetence. Don't just assume everything is some kind of conspiracy or that there's some greater cause. We want to think the world's in some kind of controlled thing, and it reminded me of a South Park episode where this whole conspiracy about whether one of the characters, one of the few episodes I ever watched, and it turns out that the whole thing was that they finally end up in the White House, and I think it's Cartman says, "But we saw you kill so and so," and they finally reveal that no, we need everyone to think there's a conspiracy because if there's not, if that way they think we're in control of everything. Because if but there's not really a conspiracy. But if they don't believe there is, they won't feel safe. But because they know that they think there's a conspiracy, people feel safe. So the conspiracy is to let you think there is a conspiracy in the episode. And of course, this was right when Dick Cheney had accidentally shot his hunting partner, and they made a joke of that. Where I think that's how they killed Kenny. But ultimately, sometimes that stuff is actually the case. There is no conspiracy theory, and so give it a little bit of time to find out what some of the facts are because and I don't even just say, oh, it must have been DEI. You don't know that unless you find out that the two pilots that were hired to help guide the ship through that channel were actually incompetent. They could have been very competent people, and you're throwing them under the bus unnecessarily. Find out your facts first, because so often the left jumps to conclusions, and then you find out a little while later that they're full of it. And let's not be making the same mistakes. We're better than that. Because when you get right down to it, you take that onion and you peel it to see what's underneath. Usually you find out the conservatives are right. So calm down. It is a big disaster. It's not the end of the world. There are other ports that can be used for any kind of military need. We're not going to be shipping a whole army across the ocean anytime soon anyway. So this isn't the disaster people think it is as far as that. Now, as far as the economic disaster, yeah, roll on, roll off cargo is most of what that port handled. It did handle some coal and other things, but mostly its big thing was cars, tractors, that sort of stuff. But anyway, that's just a few thoughts to that whole idea. And until then, until there's something more interesting to talk about, have a happy Easter. And if you're Jewish, I hope your Passover is going well or has gone well. I'm not sure the exact dates. And until then, y'all take care.